what we did over there wasn't even on TV. However, what everybody's complaining about was on TV the week before on a different event, and nobody said anything. So, and that's the difference between being a billion-dollar conglomerate and being an independent contractor.
I'm not going to get all high and mighty. They did it for the money. They offered them lots of money.
So what number would you have to take in order to not talk about, how the Saudi royal family likes to kill journalists?
Bill Burr's latest podcast episode represents a complex, defensive, and revealing moment in the intersection of art, commerce, and moral scrutiny. His reaction to the backlash over his performance at the Riyadh Comedy Festival illuminates both the fragility and conviction that often coexist within public figures navigating politically charged controversies. Burr's monologue oscillates between frustration, fascination, and defiance. In contrast, Adam Carolla and his podcast co-host criticism of the same event anchors itself in a traditional, moralist skepticism about celebrity hypocrisy and the corrosive power of money. The tension between these two approaches reflects a broader cultural debate, whether engagement with problematic regimes through art is a form of progress or a surrender of principle. Burr's response begins not with the defense of his choice, but with a critique of the media ecosystem that surrounds it. His central anxiety is not moral condemnation, but misrepresentation.
You guys are asking me, obviously, a ton of questions about the absolute controversy, right? Here's the deal. I have no problem answering any of them. The problem I have is after I answer them, it all gets clipped. And then once it gets clipped, then the lies start getting told, or they start shaping it and making it this and making it that. So all I'm doing is just throwing another log on the fire, and then they can make more money. No, I'm sorry. Well, no, because they care so much. That's right. Sorry, not because they're just making money. But I do have to tell you, this is fascinating because I've never been in the middle of one of these fucking things. And my whole life when I watch the news, not every fucking news stories, but there's been a lot of shit where you watch it going like, yeah, I don't know. Kind of seems like that kind of fucking. So to finally be in the middle of it and the level of like straight up lies is just, it's wild. Now, I'll be honest with you. I've been off the internet for like a fucking month, but just the shit people have been sending. It's funny. You get off the internet and people still send you shit. So like these stories of like there was no women there. He just performed to the Royals. By the time they're done with this shit, they're going to say I went over there and did a one-on-one show in a fucking tent staring at my toes, and then I left for the head fucking guy, whoever the hell it is over there, right? Once again, I performed in an arena over there. In the round, there was 8,000 people at the show. Okay? It was citizens. And then they had diplomats sitting down front in a nerve-wracking way for the performer to make sure that, you didn't talk about the 2 or 3 things that they said that they negotiated down to not talk about.
Burr doesn't deny the legitimacy of criticism outright, but suggests that good faith dialogue is no longer possible in a media climate dominated by outrage economies. Yet beneath that defensive tone, there is also a candid curiosity. He calls the experience fascinating, acknowledging that being at the center of controversy provides an unusual insight into how lies proliferate. His irritation coexists with an almost anthropological detachment. When Burr shifts to the factual corrections, describing the arena of 8,000 citizens, the presence of women, and the limited but negotiable speech restrictions, he attempts to reposition himself as a participant in gradual cultural evolution rather than a collaborator with repression.
Do you know what I did yesterday to fucking calm me down for the amount of bullshit out there? The fucking roast jokes that I wrote yesterday. It was as an exercise. I had a real good time doing doing that. Okay, but I will toe the line. That the reason that yeah. I'm gonna shut up now. There you go. There's for your fucking news cycle. Now go twist all of that around. But just remember, there was women at the show. 4 hotties down front. Faces were not covered. Smoke shows down front. 8,000 citizens is what I performed in front of. And then I had the teachers looking at me while I did it. And I also connected in a country that had just been hit by 2 fucking missiles, 3 missiles, whatever the fuck it was. So, I'm going to go with the fact that people really, the reason you didn't go, not because you were scared shitless, because we all were. So and I get it if you were. So anyway, so that's why I'm not answering your shit. Just hang in there for a minute. And when the bots get everybody mad at something else, I'll answer any and all fucking questions that you want to answer. And as long as you're able to take an honest look at your own backyard, yeah, you'll see. You'll see. Anyway, what do I know? I've learned, you know what I know? I know fucking nothing with all of this bullshit. Bullshit that is fucking going on. And like I said, I apologize to you guys because I really would love to answer your fucking questions. They're not that difficult to answer. And it's also a really interesting dialogue about the whole thing, about the whole world, about all of this stuff. But, I just don't trust that it's not going to get twisted up again, bring more heat on me, bring more heat on other people.
In contrast, Adam Carolla and his co-host adopt an almost utilitarian realism about the matter. They acknowledge that nearly everyone has a price, an admission of human weakness, but insist that awareness of that fact does not absolve hypocrisy. Their critique is not moral absolutism, it is about consistency. Comedians who have built their reputations railing against injustice and censorship in the West, they argue, lose credibility when they perform under strict governmental censorship for enormous sums.
All right, you got some news?
I do.
What do you got?
Well, did you hear about this Saudi Arabia comedy festival?
I did, and there was a funny TikTok video. Was I telling you about that, Andrew? I can't remember if I told you fine or something. It's out there. Somebody did like a rap song where they were like dissing all the comics.
That went.
Well, when Andrew finds it, then we'll know it.
Pete Davidson was one of them, and I'd heard him on a podcast recently where he was straight up asked about it, and he was like, well, they didn't, like, Singapore asked me not to be too sexual in my act, and he tried to, like, conflate the two.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not going to get all high and mighty. They did it for the money. They offered him lots of money.
So what number would you have to take in order to not talk about, how the Saudi royal family likes to kill journalists?
Well, I did the asphalt convention in Florida once, and they'll tell you, PG-13, not R, I do.
But PG-13 and not R is very different than in your contractual agreement, understanding that you cannot say anything about the government at all.
Yeah, so
or poke fun at them.
Well, here's how stuff works. If you say, hey, Pete Davidson,
mm-hmm.
I'll give you $4,000 to come to the Saudi, whatever. You go, no. If you go, I'll give you $200,000. He'll go, all right.
Now we're talking.
But you can't talk about X, Y, and Z. And he'll go,
Can't talk about how the Saudis funded 9/11, in which his father died.
Right. But if I said I'll give you $1 million,
mm-hmm.
then he'll take the $1 million and not talk about any of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The focus is less on Burr's artistic motives and more on the transactional nature of the act. Carolla frames this as a familiar story, profit-eroding principle. His analogy about the towel manufacturer who abandons patriotic ideals when foreign labor offers higher margins translates seamlessly into the entertainment world. The amount of money involved, he suggests, determines how much censorship one is willing to accept. For Carolla, this is not just about one gig. It's about the symbolic threshold where satire stops serving truth and becomes a luxury good, tailored to the buyer's ideology. His co-host adds another layer of criticism, the selective morality of celebrity activism. Figures like Chappelle or Burr, who have historically mocked American hypocrisy and championed speaking truth to power, seem to suspend those values when the power in question resides overseas and holds a lucrative check.
I think the thing that frustrated me the most about Dave Chappelle, though, is that he said, quote, "It's easier to talk here than it is in America."
Well, first off, this thing of like every time I turn on CNN and some blowhard's back there with an afro going, you know what it's like to be a black man in America. It's like, it seems better than almost anywhere else. Number one, Dave Chappelle, nobody gets more love than Dave Chappelle.
From left, right, and center.
Left, right, center, black and white.
And also, does he not remember, like, when the right came to his defense when he mentioned and had all those bits about, like, trans people in his stand-up comedy, and people wanted Netflix, Reed Hastings at the time, to axe him?
Yes.
And you had people that were more centrist and to the right being like, no, let the numbers speak for itself.
Right.
He was number 1 out of the top 10 on Netflix for, what, 6 weeks running?
I have... The thing, whether it is Dave Chappelle or whether it's Ilhan Omar or whether it's Trevor Noah.
Ilhan probably would have, like, kissed the ring of the Saudis, quite literally. They're her people.
Being raised as a black person in a country that is better than any other country for this, and then being rich and successful and adored, and then doing the woe is me bullshit drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. And the Ilhan Omar thing, especially when we snatch you out of a shithole and raise you somewhere nice, and then you turn on us, it drives me insane.
I think she would have been fine in that shithole, though, because, you know, she had family that was warlords over there.
Oh, she did?
So if their side...
Then she'd be fine.
Allegedly. I'll just
right.
say that from legal, but
So-
that's what's...
Carolla emphasizes that this is not merely a matter of taking the money. It's what happens afterward. When performers return home and promote narratives that sanitize or excuse authoritarianism, it's easier to talk here than in America. They become inadvertent propagandists. The line between cultural exchange and regime PR, in this view, becomes dangerously blurred. Comparing Burr's perspective to Carolla's reveals an ideological fault line in how comedians interpret their role in global politics. Burr views comedy as a microcosm of change. The very act of performing in Saudi Arabia is a small, risky, but ultimately progressive step. Carolla sees the same act as moral compromise, a symptom of how Western entertainers trade integrity for influence.
I think the thing that frustrates people about Bill Burr and Chappelle is this shtick of, oh, you know, it's not like they're yelling death to America. And by the way, it's easier to do stand up here than it is in America. And it's the false narrative. It's almost as if they are Baghdad Bob. Right? Remember Baghdad Bob?
Sure, I know Baghdad.
And so it's like, it's not just like
Bob.
they took the check and did the show. They took the check, they did the show, and they're still hawking for the regime. I think that's what kind of gets under my
I think the
skin.
problem with the Bill Burrs and the Chappelles or anybody in general is if you're going to pitch like Aziz Ansari, if you're going to pitch woke bullshit here about people and people being oppressed and violence against women and all the shit you throw up every day, spare us when you go over there and take a check. That's the whole thing. If
Aziz
Andrew
is another
Dice
one, too.
Clay did it, I'd be like, I mean, if I took the money, then I would take the money, but I'm not railing against oppressive regimes all the time.
I mean, Aziz was almost canceled by the Me Too movement because a chick that gave him a blowjob then decided a couple years later when a reporter called her that she didn't like that he then tried to hit her up for sex later in the night when she slept over. And my response to that was like, that's your average marriage. But like, once again, people, libertarians, free-minded thinkers, like people that were like, hey, let's not conflate like actual rape and abuse to a bad one-night stand, came to his defense. He came back around, also had a successful Netflix special. It's just like, don't rail on America when America has made you famous and
it's
given you
10 times better than wherever you're going to get a check. That's my whole thing.
Carolla insists that public figures must accept moral accountability precisely because they are symbols. Yet both men expose the contradictions of modern comedy. Burr, by defending the event as a step forward, inadvertently acknowledges the same censorship he minimizes. Carolla, by condemning the performers for taking the check, concedes that in today's economy, few could truly resist that temptation. The debate is not between right and wrong, but between two different kinds of realism. Burr's social realism, which accepts incremental progress under constraint, and Carolla's economic realism, which believes that money inevitably distorts principle. Ultimately, Burr's silence and Carolla's criticism converge on a shared truth, that comedy, once celebrated as the last bastion of free speech, now exists within a global market that commodifies dissent. Whether one performs in Riyadh or refuses to, the system ensures that every gesture, rebellious or compliant, feeds into the same cycle of outrage, profit, and moral ambiguity. In that sense, Burr's exasperated choice to wait until the bots get mad at something else might be the most honest acknowledgement of all. Not that he is right, but that no one in this digital spectacle ever truly wins.